What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Friday edition of Burn It Down with Kim Brown. Hey, I'm very excited to have y'all smiling faces up in the place. And of course, today's episode is titled Impeachment, Insurrection, and Insurgent Cops. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you, as somebody who lives a mile away from Washington, D.C., the shit is so fucking real right now for all the D.C. residents. And of course, if y'all live in places across the country where state capitals are supposedly fortifying for the possibility of a white supremacist attack, y'all know that we are living in different times, different than what any of us really alive have experienced, with the exception of, our elders. But before we get into the program, we've got a great one in store for you. I just want to remind you to please like, subscribe, and share. And we have some wonderful news coming up towards the end of the program. We've got some fundraising information for everybody who has been asking how they can support the show. Now I got something to tell you. But like I said, before we get started, I'd like to start off the program with a bit of regular people commentary, right? If you've been watching cable news for the past week, fuck that shit. Get the real from these two very articulate and informed perspectives from a man whose video my mother sent me off Facebook. I don't know this gentleman's name. And the second video is from a DC activist. It was shot by a friend of the show, Chuck Modiano, in front of the Capitol. So we're going to go to that. Get comfy, because this is about 4 minutes, but it is extremely both insightful and entertaining. Tunde, take us away.
Happy and sad, you fucking little piss pants pieces of shit. Ooh, we're gonna storm the Capitol. Let's storm the Capitol. We're patriots. You're a fucking coward. Patriots. Jesus Christ. Fucking idiots that I played high school football with, wearing a goddamn American flag bandana, talking about, we gotta get up there and storm. We gotta take our country back. From what? From fucking what? What are you so goddamn upset about? What has anyone ever done to you? You fucking entitled piece of shit. Don't you ever fucking call me one again. Don't you ever say, Corey, you fucking snowflake. You're a liberal. That means that y'all look. What? Want some people to not be sick every now and then? Is this the thing that you can't fucking stand? So you've got to get in your goddamn fucking piece of shit Ford F-150 you got from your dad, drive it to D.C. and pitch a fucking fit? Is that what it is? Is it health care? Is it still with the fucking guns? Is that what is it? You said Obama was taking them. 8 fucking years ago you said that. Nothing. What is it that this country hasn't fucking given you? You literally got escorted out of the Capitol building, aside from the ones that they had to fucking shoot. Is that what it takes? Is you just want to be a fucking martyr? God, you're so fucking pathetic. Do you not ever just sit there and think, my kids are going to see this. My grandkids are going to see this. They're going to put it in the textbook, and you're going to look like the dumbest motherfucker in the world. Nobody will give a shit about Watergate. Nobody. That is fucking... Dude, I'm out of breath from how stupid y'all are. What is it that this country doesn't give you that you think you have to do some bullshit like this? But when you see a fucking black person actually get shot, no gun in their hands, nothing. Oh, they should just comply. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. What is your goddamn problem? Just quit embarrassing me, man. I want my fucking country back. How about that? God damn it. Fuck y'all, you fucking cowards.
Fucking day for the past 200 some days. When we come out here with a Black Lives Matter action, you see police officers like this. With riot gear at mutual aids, at jail supports. You see them with riot gear at vigils. You see them with riot gear at vigils. But yet, armed insurrectionists came here, armed terrorists came here. And Capitol Police was waving them in, opening the gates and shit, welcoming white supremacy into the halls of Congress because it already fucking lives there. And what we're fighting for is fucking equality. So that shit doesn't live there. That shit is not allowed in there. Equality, black lives actually mattering, centering black voices, making sure that black mothers don't die. That shit is not in there. That doesn't live in the spirit of what this house fucking holds. Even though slaves built it. All those black and brown hands bleeding built this shit. But yet, all these fucking white cackling ass faces are standing right here, acting like this shit is a fucking joke. Fucking, there was a Confederate fucking flag and a fucking Nazi flag, a don't tread on me flag, 3%ers and actual white supremacists in the halls of Congress. We wanted to put banners on the fence, and this is the shit that we are dealing with. Anti-fascist banners. And this is the shit that we are dealing with. We can no longer say that fascism is not a part of who America is.
It is America, boo.
This is America. You see her.
Breathing.
This is the America that black people have always lived in. This is not something new. This is not something out of the ordinary. This is, and to suggest otherwise is ahistorical. There have been other insurrections before this one. So please understand that the white supremacists will continue to try to overthrow as long as we try to get fucking equality. But motherfuckers like them help them win. And the reason why they are not stopping them, the reason why Congress is not stopping them is because when you uphold white supremacy, it doesn't threaten their power. But when you try to dismantle it, it sure the fuck does.
Talk about it.
I'm fucking tired.
Well, I'm fucking tired too. And that was DC activist Red is Ari. Go to Chuck Modiano's Twitter page, y'all. I think that's the video that he has pinned at the top of his page. And again, you can 100% understand the frustration and the fury that sister is experiencing right now. As I said on Twitter, y'all, DC residents, people who live in DC, people who live in this region, shit is up fucking ended. Like, there is no normal traversing of going about your business in the nation's capital since last week. And thank you, you fucking racist piece of shit, for fucking it up for people who live here, and y'all don't even fucking live here. But let me simmer down and let me bring in our fantastic panel. Listen, these are the friends of the show, and we appreciate these gentlemen making some time for us. Both of them fan favorites. I can't put one over the other. Both militant, both all about that action. We are joined today with sociologist Taure Brown. He's joining us from North Carolina, and also political consultant Adriel Hampton joining us today from California. Gentlemen, it's been quite a week. I appreciate y'all making some time to be here on the program today. All right. Let's start right there. Let's start where Chuck Modiano and Ari Red left off with the Insurgent Cops. There's an impeachment that's happened, a Senate process that may or may not get started sometime next week. We'll get to that in just a bit. Also, the insurrection, we're still feeling the effects of that. But entangled in the insurrection is who was in the insurrection. And that is a conversation that I don't think is being talked about centrally enough. The fact that thousands of insurrectionists came to the U.S. Capitol, and the fact that there were active duty police officers among them, also active duty military. Tunde, do me a favor, pull up, hit C4, C5, and C6 for me, just so we can give some context for everybody to kind of understand what I'm talking about here. Let me see them joints. There we go. Yes, 2 Capitol police officers, this was the January 11th, had been suspended in connection with last week's insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, according to Congressperson Tim Ryan. One of the suspected officers took selfies with a rioter. The other donned a MAGA hat and started directing people around. He means around the Capitol once they breached and were able to gain entry. That is coming from NPR. Let me get that next one, Tunde. Oh, this was a peach. The New York Post was reporting that Army is looking into whether or not Officer Emily Rainey, who led a group to deadly DC riots. Now, Ms. Rainey is active duty in the Army, purportedly to be in the PsyOps division of the Army. And the next one, please, Mr. Tunde. Sacramento Bee is reporting that the Pentagon's top leadership are forcefully reminding active duty military of their constitutional duty, the oath to protect the transition. So it's very telling that so far, I will say there's been a tepid response from law enforcement regarding these people. We saw thousands out there at the Capitol. I think only like less than 100 have been arrested so far. And again, active duty military who were part of this white supremacist insurgency are just getting that finger wag. Hey guys, don't y'all forget, you're sworn to protect and uphold the Constitution. You better not be out there. Taure, what are we to make of the way that these institutions of power are responding to members in their own ranks being part of an armed insurgency to overthrow the U.S. government?
Yeah. Let's see. I think for the most part, it's just bad. It's bad for the brand, right? It's bad for the U.S. empire brand to have this kind of perceived, attempt to overthrow the government, right? I say perceived not in the sense that they didn't have in their minds that they might want to overthrow it, but if we're talking about in the context of history and what actually needs to happen, if they had the whole State Department or a side of the actual U.S. military outside of few individual kind of rank and file members and even some, former officers or something like that. But if there was an actual kind of plan there that was instituted, maybe it would be a more stronger argument. But more than anything else, it's just bad for the brand. And what it shows is kind of what I've been talking about consistently, and some other folks have been talking about, is just the fact that the U.S. empire is in decline, right? And we're seeing that more and more. Its inability to govern, right? It's an inability to kind of answer to the contradictions, and it's just becoming more and more pronounced. But for these folks, they have to make sure that they make an example out of them, right? That they can't. Again, it's just bad for the brand. That's where I'm at right now.
Adriel, I'm curious, have there been reports, or that you've heard at least, of any law enforcement traveling from California to participate in these rallies, or at least the big one that happened January 6th? Locally here in Maryland, in Anne Arundel County, which is sort of Baltimore area, 2 officers, and I can't recall, maybe someone in the comments help me out. I can't remember if they were fired or if they were at least temporarily suspended from duty. I know officers from Seattle, Washington were amongst those. What has been the take of this from the California perspective, Adriel?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where any officers have been implicated in being at the rallies or or at the actual assault on the Capitol. I do think that those investigations are going to continue to turn up those instances, and we're hearing of firefighters. There's other professions where people. I think on Twitter they have like an active hashtag for hunting people down based on bits of clothing and things like that. It's like, this is something that the resistance liberals can actually do that is good with the 10 hours a day they spend on Twitter is share those tips. I did want to bring up something I think is really significant to come from this is Taure's assessment that this is like the decline of the empire, the decline of imperial USA, I think is accurate. I'm, still hopeful that the tide can be turned and we could have a pluralistic democracy that works instead of a white supremacy that doles out enough benefits to keep people not fighting and has enough guns to keep people at odds with each other. We are like so far from an actual liberal democracy. I think if you would look at other examples from around the world, but we have like maybe 10 people in Congress who are really, really good. And what you see in this is there used to be like none, basically, for the past decade, 2 decades even. So you have one point is Jamal Bowman putting forth a bill saying Congressman from New York, we have to investigate the Capitol Police and their ties to white supremacists. Now, you can see that if that makes it into committees in the House that are doing that investigation, that's going to draw the same way you got the liberals on Twitter investigating a lot of these Democrats that want to get screen time, airtime out of a large 435 member body can make a big deal out of problems in police departments. And I think that is like if we contrast with the demands of the George Floyd protest, you start investigating police departments in Congress, you could actually see some good come out of it. So I think that like we have to hold on to what can we fight for out of this incident that gets us some yardage. And I think that it is the most progressive members of Congress, like Justice Democrats types, who are kind of unbeholden to corporate America, and corporate America very clearly holding up white supremacy until an attack on the Capitol forced them to withdraw donations or future donations from Republicans. I mean, we're living in like some really topsy-turvy times for sure.
I think that's I think it was Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan said that they were going to suspend all political contributions from their PACs. And I'm like, okay, until that bill, that whatever bill that they are, supporting or lobbying on behalf, until that bill comes up for a vote, sure, they're going to temporarily suspend their political contributions. Bullshit. Go ahead, Taure.
Yeah. I think we got to be careful, like even for the idea that Goldman Sachs can have any kind of morality because they don't donate to the Republican Party, when their actual function of their business is rooted in the oppression and exploitation of masses of people, regardless of color, but specifically Black and brown folks, right? Like their money is rooted in slavery in itself. Like that's the businesses that they evolve out of it. So it's like, can you disavow yourself from white supremacy? Or even, I think it's careful to be even talking about, if we're talking about policing and the function of policing and the roots of policing, like it's hard, the idea that we can even separate white supremacy from policing in itself, it just doesn't make sense. Like I talked about, I put a tweet up earlier and I said, trying to root white supremacy out of the US is like trying to root pork out of bacon, right? Like, seriously, because the function of it is about policing Black folks. It's about settler colonialism. It's about capitalism. And those things function to oppress and exploit Black and brown folks and masses of other folks. And as long as those things continue to happen, and that's not to say like, yo, don't if you ignore the KKK members that are police folks, right? Like, no, get the motherfuckers too, right? But don't get it twisted. All you motherfuckers are implicated. You're part of this system. Whether you want to be or not, you're reproducing white supremacy every day as you enact the policies and the exact purpose of policing, right? I'm not even talking about misconduct, but your everyday operations is the everyday function of white supremacy through policing. And until you abolish that kind of system, or you abolish an economic system that is rooted in the same kind of things, you're still reproducing that same kind of white supremacy. So I'm just careful. I say all that to say to be careful, because it allows people like Goldman Sachs, or allows the police to kind of reframe themselves as being morally conscious now that they're going to disavow themselves from the more overt expressions of white supremacy.
I wanted us to explore, I guess, what some of these police who were defending the Capitol experience. There was an interesting interview done locally here on the Fox affiliate, actually, Fox 5 DC. Bob Barnard, he's a decent dude. He's an all right reporter. Bob Barnard talked to these 3 Metropolitan Police officers. I'm pretty sure they were MPD. Oh, wait. By the way, John Viev fact checked me and let me know that those Anne Arundel County police officers in Maryland who had been photoed at the insurrection were only suspended. So these people have not lost their jobs. And so far, very few people who are in law enforcement or military who have been identified as being part of that crowd have been relieved of their duty officially yet. Very few, not all. But I want us to go to this clip from Fox 5 because all 3 of these white cops detailed their experience, their lives being in danger by this white supremacist mob. And I just found this pretty interesting to look at. Tunde, can we take a look at C1, my brother?
Seemed like I was getting assaulted from all sides.
One of the insurrectionists was able to get a thumb in my eye and started gouging at it. Thankfully, I was able to shake him before any permanent damage was done.
It's horrifying enough just watching the videos of last Wednesday's riot at the U.S. Capitol, but imagine being one of the outnumbered police officers trying to hold off the armed invaders, the marauding masses.
Like, I wasn't terrified, but I was.
And Mike Fanone is the officer in this viral video being dragged down the stairs and beaten by a crowd just outside the Capitol's front door.
And at that point, people were trying to grab my gun, pull my gun out of my holster. People were yelling, chanting, kill him with his own gun. I also felt like if I do that, if I pull my gun, that I'm going to provide them with the justification that they need to kill me, because eventually they're going to get to me. I don't have enough bullets for 15,000 people.
32-year-old police officer Adriel Hodges is the man seen right there, screaming as his arm and shoulder are crushed in a crowded doorway of the Capitol.
I was worried for my safety. I was unable to defend myself. Like I said, my arms were pinned, so they had already ripped away a lot of my equipment, ripped away my baton, ripped off my gas mask. They beat me in the face with my baton, and I was, sucking down OC spray and CS gas all that time. So I was afraid they were going to get my gun. Thankfully, I was on my right side, so they couldn't reach it. And I was worried about being crushed by the crowd, obviously.
Also defending the Capitol with her life, MPD officer Christina Laurie. She was in the so-called hallway of death, a tunnel on the west side of the building.
There were a lot of moments when I was in there that, I was worried for not only myself, but every single officer that was in there.
We also spoke to D.C.'s new police chief, Robert Conte, an MPD veteran who says when he arrived at the Capitol last Wednesday, in the middle of all the craziness, he couldn't believe his eyes.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, it's our worst nightmare really come true, an attack on American democracy right here in the nation's capital. It was horrifying. It was despicable.
Obviously, I was worried and scared and adrenaline was pumping and all those other things. But, after all that's said and done, if it wasn't my job, I would have done it for free. It was my privilege to be able to be there and stop a white nationalist insurrection.
A lot of people have asked me about my thoughts on the people that helped me, and now that I've kind of processed it all, like, I will say thank you, but f*** you for being there.
That video was from Fox 5 DC, and gentlemen, like, as a person, as a human, I can have empathy for them, for what they endured, for the trauma that they endured. But as a Black American who has been witnessing police violence my entire life, my parents' entire life, my grandparents' entire life, I got a fucking chuckle that they got their ass beat by a bunch of racists wielding American flags and thin blue line flags. Like, lo, the fucking irony. And clearly, Adriel, law enforcement lacked the imagination to ever think that white supremacists would be the ones to come to the U.S. Capitol and do this. I assure you, if there was thousands of Black Lives Matter protesters amassing, the tanks would have been out, the MRAPs, all the little bells and whistles that they get from the military surplus shit. Obama, thank you, Obama. That all that shit would have been out there. But they lack the imagination for this. And truly, honestly, like, as a person who has just been heartbroken by police brutality, I mean, for fuck's sake, I think about Tamir Rice, 12 years old, minding his business, shot before he even had a chance to do anything. Rakia Boyd in Chicago, Ayanna Stanley in Detroit, a 7-year-old girl who was murdered by police while she was sleeping. It's hard to have like actual sympathy for these law enforcement personnel, simply because they could have prevented this. Why is it that law enforcement was caught so flat-footed by armed white supremacists?
I think that it's, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories about things I don't know, but there has to be extremely robust investigations of what was going on. I mean, the other bill that's out there that I think people should be fighting for is Cori Bush's, I think it's HR 25, to investigate members of Congress who were voting to dismiss the results of the Electoral College in states where there was no credible allegations. You had a member of Congress saying that that he had been armed on the House floor. One of these, and then only 10 Republicans joining Democrats in impeaching Trump for literally telling people to march on the Capitol and that he would meet them there. The police, the other thing that we have to be really aware of is that the liberal Democrats are going to use this as an excuse to pass more security laws that'll be used on any kind of dissidents. And as you said, they've used these laws disproportionately, the equipment for police officers, the use of force by police officers, and the intelligence gathering by police officers to go after minorities. They're not going after white supremacists. That was like deprioritized under Trump. If they take all these new tools, do we think they're going to use them only on white supremacists? And also, you didn't need any tools because for days before this event, it was publicly known, widely known, that they planned a large-scale demonstration at the Capitol that sounded violent. Like everyone, there was a big debate. You had, I think it was Chuck Modiano talking about the debate of whether anti-fascist demonstrators should show up in DC as a counter-presence, because they know that when these protests happen, like white supremacists will start attacking people, black people, Asian people, anyone who isn't them on the streets after these demonstrations, like kind of wildly. And if you have counter demonstrations, the police tend to make everyone go home, right? So what you had was no counter presence to a massive white supremacist rally, and then incitement, direct incitement by members of Congress, Rudy Giuliani, the president. And so there was a story that I read that said that in BuzzFeed, that they were interviewing 3 black Capitol Police officers who were anonymous in this story. And they said that the leadership of the police department was missing for a critical period of time when the Capitol was being attacked. And that's the kind of thing that definitely has to be investigated, because did they basically leave their frontline cops and then make sure that they didn't have backup? They said for 90 minutes, the Maryland National Guard and perhaps other backup was not responsive. That is just totally insane. And your point that they would have had a militarized presence already if it had been Black Lives Matter or other protests that were not in favor of reinstalling the white supremacist in chief for another 4 years. I mean, and then the fact that Republicans can't even vote to censure, to impeach a guy who's already been impeached, who just did that, and like a cop died. I mean, it's crazy.
Yes. Taure, Adriel raises an excellent point. What we're going to see come out of this is not police being held accountable as agencies, the U.S. Capitol Police, Metropolitan Police, and other agencies that fail. Because again, DC is nothing but fucking cops, okay? You got the FBI, CIA, DEA, the Department of Labor. It's the whole police force. Like, stop fucking playing with me. Like, it was not a lack of personnel. This was a failure, intentional or otherwise. But the end result is still going to come to be more funding, more money is going to get allocated for law enforcement. Despite the fact that they had one job and they fucked it up, and we know who that money is going to be used against.
Well, yeah, I think for one, it's just they have their supposed job, and then they have what they actually do, right? And the job, yeah, they would have been prepared had black folks been out there, because their job, that's part of their actual job description. That's something they actually do, right? It's to police black folks. But as far as why they weren't around, I mean, maybe there is a bigger conspiracy that, they actively were involved in. I think a lot of some of them, I think it will come out that more rank and file especially were involved, especially ones you saw waving in certain videos, taking selfies and shit. Oh, I'm pretty sure they had some involvement, right? I wouldn't be surprised about that at all. But as far as the higher ups, who knows? They were probably out on the golf course or somewhere else. As long as black folks weren't talking about organizing or some shit like that, or, somebody asking for some actual material change, they didn't really have any real issues. They're not prepared. Their job is not to really police petite bourgeois white folks, right? And I think that that's maybe what's important to talk about. You know, I don't have it's not like they took exit polls from the insurrection or whatever we're calling it at the time, but I've seen folks that were, you know, CEOs, had private planes, they're staying at fancy downtown DC hotels. You know, all of these folks ain't poor Jim Bob that that spent their last $40 and got on a bus to travel to DC. Now, were there a few of those kind of folks there? Maybe so, but it seems to be that this is more about who really supports Trump is this kind of petite bourgeois white class, right? Some are college educated, some are not, and they're all, you know, deeply invested into Trump's brand, essentially. And policing is not necessarily geared towards them. So again, I think that, you know, we're going to see some more police officers and things like that come out about it. But I really don't have, like Kim said, I don't have any empathy necessarily for the police at all. Again, I understand the function of the police, like its actual function is to, you know, protect the interest of capital, essentially, right? And even the idea that they're supposed to protect democracy, you know, we call this an attack on a democracy. Okay, if we're agreeing that we have a democracy, but we often don't call, you know, the ability of a billionaire to call your presidential candidate over to the Hamptons and say, I want you to pass this, do that, do this, an attack on democracy as well, right? And why don't we make those kind of same connections, right? Why don't we have that same kind of uproar at the same time, right? Why aren't the police, you know, arresting folks for doing that kind of shit too? I'm just trying to pull folks in a larger frame for that.
No, totally. Like, and again, these specific cops, I mean, not the three individuals that we saw in that Fox 5 DC report, but these agencies, I mean, fuck them. Like, they treat these activists in the streets, these DC organizers, like wholesale shit. They attack them with pepper spray. They attack them by you know, fucking with them, arresting them, harassing them. Meanwhile, at previous Proud Boy rallies and rallies of Trump supporters that happened November and December of 2020, they let them motherfuckers beat people up, stab people, and let them leave town. Very reminiscent of what happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin with accused killer Kyle Rittenhouse. Shot people in plain view of the police, and they waved them on by. Go ahead, Kyle. Why don't you go home? Go home to your mama, Kyle. And it was no big fucking deal. Hey, from the comments, real quick, let me read this one. Butterscotch Sweets says, it's amazing how all of these cops feared for their lives, yet they were able to think about what would happen if they fired. Well, I guess pulling your gun is not a reaction to fearing for your life. Well said, Butterscotch Sweets. Exactly. What happened at the Capitol on January 6th was a full display that, you know, white people apparently don't fear other white people, not like they fear black people. They don't fear for their lives, despite being beaten by a mob of thousands. He didn't want to pull his gun because he ain't have enough bullets. Well, I think that was a reasonable conclusion to arrive at, Mr. Policeman. But at the same time, you know, if it had been all them black activists down there, somebody would have been severely hurt. And I know that one lady, the Ashley Babbitt, the Air Force veteran, got shot and killed, but she was one out of thousands. And it would have been a different scenario. I don't even want to go down that road because I can't stand that false comparison. But I want us to move on to the impeachment, right? Because the House voted this week to impeach Donald Trump for the second time. And this may or may not mean much because really, in order for Trump to feel any major consequences of this impeachment, he has to be convicted in the Senate. And the Senate, at least the majority leader at the moment, well, Mitch McConnell, I guess he's running this thing. Adriel McConnell says we won't even begin to have a trial for Donald Trump until January 20th, the day of the inauguration. And but I did want us to just visit a couple of clips from the House impeachment hearings. Which one do we have first, Tony? I think it doesn't really matter. We're going to hear from Representative Cori Bush, the newly elected freshman Democrat from St. Louis, Missouri's 1st district. She represents St. Louis. And Matt Gaetz, this piece of shit from Florida, junior Klansman. I'm pretty sure. I don't quote me on that. I'm not sure, but he might be, asterisk, might be an alleged junior Klansman. I'm not really sure. Let's take a look at that video if we could, Tunde.
I denounce political violence from all ends of the spectrum, but make no mistake, The left in America has incited far more political violence than the right. For months, our cities burned, police stations burned, our businesses were shattered, and they said nothing. Or they cheerled for it, and they fundraised for it, and they allowed it to happen in the greatest country in the world. Now, some have cited the metaphor that the president lit the flame. Well, they lit actual flames, actual fires, and we put them out.
Expired. There will be order in the House.
I yield back.
Madam Speaker, St. Louis and I rise in support of the article of impeachment against Donald J. Trump. If we fail to remove a white supremacist president who incited a white supremacist insurrection, it's communities like Missouri's 1st District that suffer the most. The 117th Congress must understand that we have a mandate to legislate in defense of Black lives. The first step in that process is to root out white supremacy, starting with impeaching the white supremacist in chief. Thank you, and I yield back.
Cori Bush, y'all see her representing the 314. That's the Lou, baby, right there. Cori Bush said, get that grand wizard up out of here. Adriel Hampton, I want us, we're going to talk about Cori Bush's comments, but I want us to pivot back to Matt Gaetz, if we could, for a moment, because, he wasn't the only one who stood up on the House floor and echoed a lot of those talking points, talking about how actual fires burned in American cities this past summer because of Black Lives Matter protesters. Explain to us this horrible false equivalence that these Republicans are putting out, comparing the uprisings in response to racialized police violence over the summer versus these disgruntled armed white racists who basically went to the Capitol and threw a big temper tantrum and were allowed to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff going on here. One is that he is speaking to a racist audience that's going to just buy his line of baloney wholesale. But if you're speaking to people who are maybe less politically active, if you have family members who are both sidesing it because they don't understand the issue, on one hand, you have the largest civil rights protests in the history of the world. These were global protests against police violence against Black and brown people. And they were, by and large, very peaceful protests that were met with incredible amounts of force, incredible numbers of arrests, versus a ginned up conspiracy theory about Donald Trump not losing the election, which he lost by a very wide margin, with all of the Republican secretaries of state affirming the results of the election from their states, and none of the people elected down ballot from Donald Trump offering to give up their seats from the Republican Party. And they gathered their people, the craziest of the crazy white supremacists, right? And Tori's point about why a billionaire buying off politicians like the Koch brothers did over the past decade, creating a totally new political system for the Republican Party, totally reversing even who is part of the Republican Party by basically dumbing down the message until every stupid white person in America is friendly with the Republican Party. Then they fed them these insane conspiracy theories to get them down to the Capitol, saying that the election had not been fair to them. And then they were directly incited by some of the most powerful Republican politicians and figures, which it should be a fringe party, but because of the white supremacist roots of our government, it is almost has a hold on half of the country, and just actually right at the moment has control of 2 of the 3 branches plus the Supreme Court, which helped Trump do a murder spree with capital punishment on his way out. I'm just totally insane amounts of violence and craziness from a fringe group that's moving a whole huge portion of the electorate, 30 to 40% of the electorate, that has gained control of our government. And that's what Matt Gaetz is trying to maintain, that crazy QAnon influenced, poisonous group of people that want to hurt people, that are actively supported by at least 147 members of Congress and more if you count the impeachment vote, are equivalent to the largest civil rights demonstrations in U.S. history, which took place in basically every city in America. I mean, my dad and his partner were demonstrating for Black lives, and there were racist counter-protesters in rural California. But that was going on all over our entire country, and they're demeaning that. I mean, I don't even listen to Matt Gaetz because it's just so gross. It's so, it's like listening to the National Enquirer, but it's human.
Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, a bunch of these, peroxide blondes.
A lot of them.
There. And supported the president. I mean, wholeheartedly. Gave him a tiny bit of condemnation, but by and large, they were expressing their support for it. And that's what I think people are kind of maybe missing the point here, because not everybody was appalled by this. As much as these mainstream outlets and, talk about this attack on our democracy and, saddened us all. No, not everybody was sad about this shit. A lot of people, and that's why there's 20,000 cops, armed National Guardsmen 2 miles from my fucking house, because they believe that enough people supported what happened on January 6th that they might come back and try it again. And if they don't come to DC to try it, they're going to try it in a state capital near you. The fact that all of America is not repulsed by this. Well, what are your thoughts about what type of influence this white supremacist rhetoric, this conspiracy QAnon rhetoric, this Trump rhetoric will continue to have on that segment of the country, even as Joe Biden takes the oath of office to become president?
Yeah, I think it'll still have a brand of folks, right? I think some folks were voting for Trump because they weren't going to vote for Biden, right? I don't know that, all 74 million are buying into the, Alex Jones, InfoWars type influence. Not to say they're not repulsed enough to not to vote for, so to be in unison as far as votes in the Republican Party at that time. But I think that fringe of folks, I don't have a gauge on how large it is. It's significant enough to create an industry, right? Alex Jones and other folks are still finding ways to get paid. So obviously there's a good amount of folks that still believe in it, and I think they still have that brand. But what it really shows is that the lack of analysis that people have in general, the American public has in general, and how susceptible they are just looking for anything to explain something outside of what they've been told for so long, right? And I think that's when I'm talking about an empire in decline. That's one of the parts we identify with, right? Is that nobody has the answers anymore, and so people are just clinging to whatever they can, or easily influenced, I should say, by any kind of analysis that doesn't feel connected to what they might feel as the elites or the deep state or whatever the case may be, whoever the enemy, the certain ideology identifies with. And so I think that, that group is going to continue to exist as, I've always said that the most dangerous thing is when you're going to get somebody who has a more intelligent scheme of marketing. Right, Trump had kind of the old school marketing, which maybe worked with this kind of the baby boomer group that's still around voting for the Republican Party and stuff like that. But there's going to be a new, smoother, slicker, more intelligent as far as their communication skills with the newer young folks that is going to be even more dangerous because he's going to influence those kind of people. And that's what you're going to look for. And the opposition is a neoliberal capitalist person, right? At this time, at least. This is what you're going to see. And they don't really have an answer for a lot of folks either, right? And we're going to see a bigger contradictions going on inside the Democratic Party about people trying to answer things.
And when you say this next person who is a little bit more slicker, I think it's a she, actually. I think Ivanka is primed. I'm telling you, Trump was bringing Ivanka to all the state dinners and shit, and the motherfucking foreign minister is like, what the fuck is Ivanka doing here? But I think that's exactly what that was about, giving her that experience so she could very easily step into those shoes should Trump be legally precluded from seeking office again in 2024, which I think is a good possibility. I definitely think he'll run again. But I wanted to talk to y'all about this possibility of what? Yes? What? Oh, we did? Oh, okay. Listen, so we had a little bit of technical snafu. But that's okay, because we will get them back. Brother Tunde is on the case. Folks, I appreciate everyone leaving comments. So let's get to some more of these comments, actually, because the comments are good, because y'all are good. Microsoft Word technician support. God damn it. Microsoft Word technical support. How come I can't never read this shit right? They say, quote, the greatest country in the world, end quote. Man, if that were true, it would be a really, really fucked up world. Right. Imagine America's the best that's out there. And speaking of, while I'm shitting on America real quick, we have been looking at the analytics for who is watching the program, and turns out that 35% of our viewers are not watching us in the United States, Canada, or the United Kingdom. So if you are watching us from outside of the United States, Canada, or the United Kingdom, can you drop that in the chat? Can you tell Genevieve where you watching us from? Because I'm very curious, because I know some ladies who might be trying to marry for some citizenship. I might know somebody. I might know a couple somebodies. I am kidding. Let's see what else we got here in the comments. I'm curious and even if y'all are domestic, drop your location if you don't mind, and tell us what the fuck the preparation is if you live in or near a state capital. Is the shit getting realer where you are? Afra sings. Afra says they value the CVS more than the U.S. Capitol. Afra, say it again. Listen, all the racists, all the Fox News personalities were distraught over the CBS being burned in the Baltimore uprisings in 2015 and the Target being burned this past summer in Minneapolis. They were, why are they destroying their own neighborhood? Why are y'all motherfuckers destroying your own institutions of power that serve you? The demographic that was front and center on January 6th, that is who the U.S. Capitol is there to serve. Not me, not the Black activists who have been out there on the streets for months and months and months. And that's for y'all. I mean, y'all, the racist white people, not the good white folks that watch my program, of course. Hold on, we got some more comments because Genevieve is in here working hard. Shout out to Molly Shaw, also holding us down on social media. Paul X BSOG, friend of the show. Paul says this narrative that Trump's cult is, quote, oppressed, I reject it. Of course we reject it, dog. Listen, I mentioned Tamir Rice earlier, right? I mean, just still, even though it's been years, it's still a very heartbreaking thing to even think of what Tamir Rice and his family have endured. Please point to me the 12-year-old white child who was playing with a fake gun, who got shot and murdered by police without even having a chance to put the gun down or any of that, right? They shot Tamir within seconds upon arriving on that scene. Show me the white child that has died at the hands of law enforcement in a similar way. You're not going to find it. Yeah, I reject that oppressed shit too, Paul. Paul also says 6 months ago, these same folks were driving around on yachts. Listen, y'all better reject this notion that it is, people who reside in mobile homes, trailer parks that are out here upset. No, sir, these people got good jobs, okay? Corporate jobs. These people are lawyers. These people serve in our military. These people are police officers. These people are your child's teachers, your nurses who are caring for you. The horror, y'all. It's crazy. Steely Steve, also friend of the show, Steely Steve says, the problem is that the Democrats have no integrity. Trumpsters know they rigged the 16 and 20 primaries against Bernie. Find the lie, Steely Steve. Find the lie. Yep. Trump even said that shit. Now, granted, we can't take anything Trump says at face value, but fuck, a broken clock is right at least twice a day. And Trump said that at different points in times, that the DNC rigged it against Bernie, which, we all know. But then here we are. We got what we got with Joe Biden. Joe Biden, who is entering the White House amidst fraught times. And Joe Biden is, I'm sure y'all have heard the latest, right? Joe Biden's stimulus proposal that Americans will receive $1,600 checks. And Joe Biden is like, oh, y'all thought I said $2,000. No. I'm sorry. You had that all wrong. No, $1,400 checks. Thank you. My math is a bit off. Joe Biden said, yeah, I got $1,400 checks coming. And, y'all thought y'all was getting $2,000? No. That was a mistake. You must have misheard that. Tunde, are we good to go? We got our people back? Not yet. That's okay. Oh, okay. I'd like to welcome back Taure Brown, Adriel Hampton to the program. Thank you, fellas. We had a bit of a technical snafu, but I appreciate y'all standing by. Please remind me what we were talking about, because I smoke marijuana. I have a tendency to forget things. Where do we leave off?
Checks. Oh no, Taure was the midpoint.
Sorry.
I'm not sure. The feds probably cut us off because I started talking about the Democratic Party, and then things went bad. I was doing fine. We were doing fine when I was talking about the Republicans, but as soon as I talked about the Democrats, we got cut off. So I don't know where you want me to come in, Kim. I heard you talking about Biden's pennies that he was offering folks. So I'm happy to
drop a boat right on Joe Biden's dome. Go ahead, drop a boat.
I mean, what you thought, right? I mean, what did you think? Joe Biden's been telling folks that the whole time that his whole life is like, as much pennies as you can get, right? And you meant 2,000? No, I meant collectively 2,000, right? What Trump gave y'all plus, I'll just fill in the rest. But I will say this, because it's a waste of time really to talk about how full of shit Biden really is, right? And how full of shit you're really going to see him, is that this is the time to stay on the Democrats' necks, right? This is the time to ask for the shit. There's no more excuses. They have the filibuster excuse or the 60 whatever, but stay on their motherfucking necks. I don't want to hear no shit. Like you want $2,000 checks? No, I want $2,000 checks. That's what the fuck I want. You go get that shit, boy. Every month.
We want one monthly.
And look, I want Medicare for all. Like, just step on their motherfucking necks, right? I don't want to hear no bullshit. I don't want to hear the little $10,000 student loan shit when you have the executive power to really wipe away all of that shit. But nonetheless, you at least need to ask for more than $10,000 worth, right? Even your own people in the party was asking for 50, right? I say all of the shit. Right? You have no problem bailing out industries. You have no problem giving $740 billion to a defense project, right? So you can go steal resources on behalf of multinational corporations and exploit the labor of millions and millions of people around the globe. Fuck that. I want my $2,000 goddamn check every month, right? And this is the time to stay on the motherfuckers' necks, right? Do not let Joe Biden give any people no damn excuses. Right? They voted for your ass. I don't want to hear about 2022 or what we can't do. Look, we're dying right the fuck now. So you're either gonna let us all fucking die, or you're gonna give us our money, right? We're gonna come for your check. But we're not gonna hear about like, just vote, do this other shit, or we have to reach across the aisle or none of that shit, right? Prove what you're saying, right? And we know Joe Biden is not that person, but again, you need to stay on his damn neck until he transforms, right? Or until the party just has to bend to the will of the people, right? And the only way you do that is through an organized mass power.
Adriel, I want to read you a tweet from one of the smartest people I follow on Twitter. This tweeter said, "The left, since early in the pandemic, people need $2,000 monthly checks to stay home. Joe Biden, now. Go to work, here's $1,400. Biden surrogates say left can't math, complain, and this is the last thing we do for you. Great start, Joe Biden, hashtag no honeymoon." That was from Adriel Hampton. Adriel,
that was too nice. I think one of the things is I really believe in the optics and messaging part of it, because Republicans will be able to turn around and put out mailers that say Joe Biden promised you $2,000 and he didn't deliver. I mean, he's creating that scenario. It's also a scenario where Trump can say, I gave more money so far than Joe Biden has, right? Because you add up, there's been 2 Trump checks. Joe Biden's only going to do 1, and it's going to be less than he advertised. I absolutely agree that we have to go after the Democrats. I also think that the best way to do that is to make them vote on everything, because the Republicans also have to vote. So if you are a progressive, you need Republicans out of federal government so that you can start getting progressives to fight neoliberals, because the neoliberals always use, and Joe Manchin's basically a Republican, but they use the real Republicans plus someone like Joe Manchin or Senator Feinstein, and they say, we can't do it. We can't even put it out there. But if you put it out there and you have Republicans voted against $2,000 checks and they lost the Senate. So Joe Biden, wake up, open your eyes, and decide to actually serve the majority of the people that actually your government is supposed to represent, right? And if the Republicans continue to vote against this stuff, they will lose, and it will expose bad Democrats, and you will move the country towards something that is more humane, that is more just. And I think that's the kind of thing we have to put them on the spot over and over and over. And hopefully we'll actually get something for it here and again. But trying to say that this Joe Biden stimulus plan was like as good as Bernie is like, what is he not smoking? Because Bernie would have also legalized marijuana, also done a job guarantee. He would have done monthly checks. And so Joe Biden's not even nibbling at the edges of a democratic socialist plan that is the kind of plan that has helped other countries be tremendously happy. You know, this $2,000 a month is less than people got back in taxes from Trump's tax cuts. And I want to hear Joe Biden talking about flipping those tax cuts and raising taxes on the rich to equalize the society and get people their money, even though I don't think that you would have to do it to get people money. I think you need to knock the rich down a bunch of notches. A story came out today that Bill Gates is the largest agricultural landholder in the United States. Like and you had the pandemic wealth of like Elon Musk becoming the richest man in the world, and Amazon. I wrote speaking of tweets, I wrote at the beginning of the pandemic, I said, we're going to lose 1 million jobs. And for every 1 million jobs we lose, every 1 million jobs we lose will be 10,000 Amazon jobs. There'll be drivers, there'll be warehouse workers, and all of these small businesses are getting destroyed while Amazon makes insane amounts of money. So Joe Biden is nibbling at the edges. He's a phony, and we do have to expose that.
Is he a phony though, Adriel, or is he delivering?
No, he's exactly who he's always said he is.
A centrist piece of shit. All right, and a racist piece of shit at that. Listen, on our discussion page on the channel, somebody 3 months ago left a comment that I just didn't see, and I saw that shit because I put a new post on the discussion page. This motherfucker said, "Is now the time to be calling Joe Biden a racist?" I said, nigga, I'm gonna call Joe Biden a racist yesterday. I'm gonna call Joe Biden a racist tomorrow. I'm gonna call Joe Biden a racist next year. And I called Joe Biden a racist 10 fucking years ago. He is what the fuck he is. We're not gonna sit here and pretend that we had been, just because Trump was a whole demon does not make Joe Biden a fucking angel, okay? And just because the Republicans are our enemies does not make the Democrats our allies. But let me ask y'all one more quick question, and then I'm gonna let y'all go. I appreciate y'all time, by the way. So what I'm very concerned about is that despite the fact, as Adriel and Taure, y'all both mentioned, Democrats, specifically black voters, specifically black women voters, delivered the state of Georgia to the Democrats, gave them 2 whole ass senators, okay, and the election, right? Just an amazing feat performed by black women organizers. Stacey Abrams, we're going to give Stacey a prop there. We're going to give Insane Ufat from the New Georgia Project and the other activists who work extremely diligently to register hundreds of thousands of people, new voters, which is amazing. So the Democrats, listen, they need to be cutting all them sisters a check, a big ass check, no less. But I'm concerned that despite having now the Senate, having the House and the White House, what we are going to see come out of this Biden administration is going to be more austerity. It's going to be increased funding for the police, because clearly, since the police fucked it up, they must need more resources and more training, because that seems to be the only neoliberal solution, and conservative solution, by the way, for making police better, is to give them fuckers more money. Fuck them. And what was the other thing I wrote down? I said austerity, and now that's it. Sorry. I mean, seriously, like, Biden is gonna try to nickel and dime us, and he's gonna give the cops more money, but he's there because of I'm gonna say us and not us, because I know you didn't vote for Joe Biden. I didn't vote for fucking Joe Biden either, but it was our community that delivered the White House to this motherfucker. Let me get your take here, sir.
Yeah, but the thing is to think about, like, well, what incentive do they have? Like, does Joe Biden really have, right? Because if you have black folks under a hostage situation where you have the Grand Wizard, at least in their eyes, in the Republican Party, and somebody less than the Grand Wizard, then who are you going to go for every time? But what it is though, which I hope, which we are going to see, is that more people are going to start to see the contradiction that Joe Biden does actually serve the interests of capital, and that this framework of neoliberalism really tries to solve social problems through the marketplace, right? So you're going to see Joe Biden give money to businesses. You're going to see Joe Biden give money to cops. And he's going to frame all of that under some kind of social justice, bullshit ass kind of framing. When it's really about, again, serving the interests of capital. And that's what you're going to see. But I hope that, again, through some of the methods that Adriel talked about, like, putting stuff to a vote, right? A more intense struggle between folks who identify as progressive versus this neoliberal kind of faction of the ruling class that still now controls the state specifically. And I'm hoping that people start to ask more critical questions. And I think they are. Even around this last stimulus bill, you saw folks talking about money that was going to countries like Israel, right? And why is that? Why is Israel getting this amount of money? Why is Wayne, this Venezuelan Freedom Project, getting $30 million? What is that for, right? And people are starting to ask those dangerous questions about what the U.S. is doing across the world and who is it actually serving, right? And what is that money actually going to? And I'm thankful that folks are going to start seeing that and and Joe Biden is going to bring that contradiction to the forefront. Now, what does that manifest in? Does that manifest in, a changing of the Democratic Party into a new progressive kind of party? Maybe. I'm not going to have my hopes up, right? I know that capitalists have a way to kind of co-opt and adopt every kind of thing, right? But nonetheless, we're going to see people moving to a more stronger analysis. I mean, I think that Bernie at least showed that more folks are willing to kind of question some of the main contradictions in society, and I hope they even go further to the left than Bernie at the time being. So that's what I think Biden's presidency is really going to bring out. But you're right, Kim. It's more austerity. It's more money for the police, right? It's more bullshit ass PR marketing to try to keep people out the streets and off his ass, right? And people just have to stay right on top of them. And the progressive folks inside the party, that folks that do feel that route, they're gonna have to get a little bit even more buck with Nancy Pelosi's and everybody else. You're gonna have to really start fighting them once Trump is out of office. I don't want to hear no more bullshit.
Adriel, so not related to necessarily what we're talking about, but I just find it interesting. Senator Dianne Feinstein announced that she will be seeking re-election in 2022 at the tender age of 91. So there's that. But you mentioned Nancy Pelosi earlier, as Taure just mentioned her, and I'm recalling this clip of Nancy Pelosi that I saw prior to the election where she talked about how much we need a strong Republican Party. We need sensible Republicans in Congress to do what exactly, Nancy? To block fucking progress for another 50, 75 years? The fact that Joe Biden is probably going to capitulate to a lot of, I guess, what centrist or moderate conservatives want or don't want, they're probably going to try to take the cutting shears to this, I think, $1.9 trillion stimulus bill that he's proposed. That's probably going to get whittled to probably about half, which he probably knows. What should we expect from the early portion of this Joe Biden administration? Oh, by the way, and COVID is still off the fucking hook.
Right. I mean, I did see some positive news today about COVID from the Biden administration putting together a plan to go after the vaccine, 100 million doses in 100 days. They may be able to do something like that. And it's like the one kind of smart thing. However, then the news shifted to that they're changing the name because they don't want to be associated with Project Warp Speed, which was the name of Trump's. And it's kind of insane because it was probably the one decent thing that Trump, his people did, was they kept that program moving fast, getting the vaccine out. So it's like they're always going to be playing politics. I think that the future's not written. It's like the reason I stay involved in politics. If I really thought, you can read things from the 1920s and 1930s where you see that their problems for socialists were the same problems we face now. The problems of poverty were the same. But can we, in the next 100 days, put enough pressure on Biden that, one, like he makes student loan debt not just 10,000 but 50,000 or more? He could easily do 50,000, stroke of the pen. That's what all of the legal analysis is. They need to reduce military spending. I mean, I think that anti-war folks voted for Biden because Trump is such a warmonger, right? And you've got Biden will be working on some kind of peace deal with Iran, and that is significant. You have Kamala Harris said that they are going to decriminalize marijuana. So let's see them put that out in the first 100 days. And also, we've got to get him to knock off the kumbaya with Republicans because playing softball with these people who literally want to kill you is not the way to go. They need to put the Republican Party and its top officials under investigation for the first 100 days so Biden can do his job without them interfering and sending their goons to harass public officials. I mean, I think that there's a Medicare for all. I mean, we're going to have a new Medicare for all bill. We need to see every single Democrat on there as a co-sponsor. And if they're not, we need to hold them accountable for it. And then we need a vote, and we need to see are any Republicans willing to stick up for their constituents and give them the health care that they need. And if they're not, their constituents need to know that. So there's so much hardball that Joe Biden is enabled to do. And what do we have, like 6 months before we're actually in the 2022 election cycle? So he needs to do it now and not be giving Republicans mailers that say he didn't deliver on checks, but instead that he actually delivered on policy for working people. And that's how Kamala Harris is president until, I mean, you're both going to hate me, but, until what, 2032.
Kamala. Come on, man. Don't nobody want to see Kamala. Listen, I get the identity,
Only if they do everything I want. No.
Thank you. If Kamala get her shit together, then yeah, I might be able to support Kamala. But Kamala at present does not have her shit together. And just the final word here, Adriel, to what you had to say about hopefully Democrats getting a Medicare for all bill passed in Congress. Joe Biden, one of his campaign promises was, if a Medicare for all bill hits my desk, I am not going to sign it. And we're going to leave the show there. Listen, thank you so much. Political consultant Adriel Hampton, sociologist Taure Brown. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you so much. You guys have been a lot of fun as usual. Of course, y'all have the smartest shit to say, so I appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Kim.
Hey guys, I know we went into overtime here. I hope y'all are still watching. If you aren't, that's okay. You can go back and watch later. Okay, so my announcement was, after been many comments much to my surprise. Okay, people have been asking us how you can support the show. So our fundraising shit is up. Patreon.com/BIDWKB. We also set up a Cash App, and that's $BIDWKB. Anything that y'all send us, it's appreciated. We're going to keep our content free, but as you all know, everyone working on this show got laid off in December. Me, Tunde, who is the new Dwayne. Dwayne kept his job. Did I mention that? And that's not a shot at Dwayne. Dwayne knows that it is all good. Our producer, Jean-Pierre Montanar, and our social media lady, Molly Shaw. And that's really all I can say about it, y'all. We got laid off, and we have fundraising information. You do with that what you will. And seriously, whatever you decide to give, thank you in advance. It is generous of you to do so. We know that we are living in fucked up economic times right now. Times are hard for all of us. So anything that you are able to do, it is appreciated, and is not just going to help me stay with marijuana. And I might buy some weed with y'all money. I can't make no promises that I'm not, but there are other people here that are attached to this, and your support would be greatly appreciated. So go to the discussion section of the Burn It Down with Kim Brown YouTube channel, and you can find that information there. Jean-Pierre, I know, loaded me up with comments, but I feel bad like keeping y'all because like we are way over time. But let me read a couple things real quick. Livin' She Buckner says, "Hi Kim, this is Eric from Columbus, Ohio. Hey, what's up, Eric? And the state is preparing for riots." Yes, I saw Governor Mike DeWine. Mike DeWine said, "Don't come here with that bullshit." But here's the thing. Mike DeWine let them come there with that bullshit over the summer. Eric, did he not? Black Magic says, "Only in the U.S. does voting in a segregationist to out a racist equal progress." Black Magic, when are you coming on the show, Black Magic? That is some astute surmising of the situation there. Polly Gannon says, "Watching from Berlin, Germany." Are you friends with Molly? Because if you're friends with Molly, they don't count. No, I am just kidding. Appreciate that. I'm a longtime fan. You are brilliant. That is very kind of you, Polly. I certainly appreciate that. And this is the last thing I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna be saying goodbye. apparently Ilhan Omar liked the tweet that the show was mentioned in. I think it was an Adriel Hampton tweet. So Ilhan Omar, come join us, sis. We would love to have a chat with you. Love to have a chat with you. And that's all I'm gonna say. Y'all, that's the end of Burn It Down with Kim Brown. Your Friday edition, we will be back on Tuesday. Tuesday, we're going to be talking about how the law enforcement apparatus in this country has been ignoring the rise of violent white nationalists for literally decades, and B, these same white supremacists have been a part of policing forces, as Taure mentioned, since their inception. So we should not be surprised that there was whole ass cop Klansmen out there at the U.S. Capitol trying to destroy our democracy. So we'll get into that on Tuesday. You guys have a very good weekend. Please stay safe. These white supremacists are wilding the fuck out. Keep your head on a swivel. They are trying to start a race war. Let NBC News tell it. So that could mean they could try to be attacking Black communities. And if you live in one, I'm not even trying to crack jokes here, y'all. I'm being dead ass serious. Like with this, we are on a whole nother level of shit. Okay. So please be careful. Of course, COVID is out there raging. It's jumping on people. I do not want it to jump on you. Wash your hands, wear your mask, social distance. Have a great weekend, y'all. See y'all later. Bye-bye.